So this is me. I started a company called Flavor in 2008 with my best friend. We went to China for 6 weeks and we got robbed of all our money, which was lovely. And we started talking, okay, we've lost everything, what should we do now? And we decided we should follow our dream and start our own business, and we should change the world. So that was the first starting point. Our first business plan was crap. But we thought, he's a game designer, we thought using games, not just for 16-year-olds, but using games, we can learn something from that and we can apply that. So that was the starting point for Flavor. My background is in communication. I started at the Rijksuniversiteit in Groningen, which if you type into Google, you get a picture of a rug, which is nice. And we thought we would be the next generation. We thought if we change the world, we will change everything. And we started small, but we're getting there. This is Flavor. This is our company. It's, as you can see, very, very pink, which was not my idea. The guy in the corner, that's my partner. And we started together, we won a prize here. And the point I'm showing is that because it's open, everyone has a say. Everyone in the company is equal. We don't really have a structure or a hierarchy. We have gamified our company. For example, people print stuff for other people. They take out the trash, everything to earn points. They restock the fridge. They deliver their deadlines on time, on budget, because they're motivated to get their perfect scores. So we gamified the whole company. We're very informal. We're actually the eldest, I think. So we're about 30, so a lot of young people, and in the center is a picture of Bring Your Parents to Work Day. We thought, why not, since we're so young? And since the guys are so young, we didn't get them cars or phones, we got them bikes. So, which is green. These are some of the clients we work for. The reason I show, it's 2 reasons. One of them I'm really proud, because we started really small in a basement with nothing but a coffee machine and a laptop. And we applied for a loan at the bank. And they sent us a letter, they said, no, never gonna happen. And then a week later they became our first client. So we said, that's fine, we'll just bill you. So, but our clients, the interesting part is that we don't have a set rule of clients. Gamification applies across the board. It can be a charity, it can be a very commercial goal, it doesn't really matter. You can apply it in different ways. We won some prizes, not this one, but I don't think we'll ever win this one. And I teach at some universities, and this is one of my examples. Personally, does anyone know him? His name is Lee Sheldon, yeah, Priscilla knows him. He's a professor, and he came to a university and he looked at the system and he said, okay, this sucks. You grade people, people are not showing up, they're not really motivated. So he threw out the system and he made a gamification system. You don't get grades, you get experience points. If you show up, or if you hand out your assignment on time, if you ask questions, if you participate in the class, you get points and you level up. And the higher the level, the better the grade you get at the end of the semester. So I tried this out in my classes, and for the first time in I think 50 years or something, there was a 100% attendance rate. People were really motivated to come to class, not because the content was different, but because they could earn points for being there, and they could earn points for handing in things. So that was really interesting. So, gamification. Let's start at the basics. What is it? Because there's many definitions out here. This is the one we use. It's not necessarily the right one, but it's the one we use. We say gamification typically involves applying game design thinking to non-game applications to make them more fun and engaging. Basically, what we do is we learn from games. What made them so successful, what made them addictive, and we take those aspects and we use them for different applications. So, for example, I have one thing that is, I think, very simple. It shows how it works, because most communication is about what I want to tell you or what you have to do. For example, I'm a bit chubby, I have to lose weight. Not necessarily something I enjoy doing, especially because it's a must. I stand in front of the fridge and I think I mustn't eat or I shouldn't. But as soon as it changes into wanting to do something, then I'm motivated to do it. And that is more interesting. So we had an example which is about taking the stairs. Everyone knows taking the stairs is healthier than taking the escalator. It's healthy, it's better for you, it's good for your condition. But it turns out most people still take the escalator. So I have an example of someone who changed that just by making it fun and giving you a choice. It's actually, I think, in Sweden. And they just replaced the stairs by a piano. And there's no one standing at the bottom of the stairs saying you should take the stairs. It's really simple, we make it fun. Okay, so this is the core of gamification. It's not about what you should or what you must do, it's about how we make it into something that is fun and where you want to do it by yourself. I also hear gamification, lots of people think it's new. It's the word of 2012. It's not really that new. I think it's been around since a long time. Coca-Cola used it to shoot the crap out of Pepsi, just to get their brand value across, which is we're better than Pepsi. It's a fun way of showing that. It actually goes back to what we call the homo ludens, which is a playing person. If you translate it literally, it's about playing. And what's interesting is that we all start out playing. As young children, we stick things in our mouth, we play with things, we feel them, we smell them, we interact with others to a certain point, I think about 4, where we go to school. And then we get into this linear program where we have to take in knowledge, we get tested, and then we move on to the next knowledge. But it's not about experience anymore, or about having fun, which is a very strange concept, because that's very human of us to learn that way. So you would think that children, if they continue that cycle, could learn more easily and more effectively. Did I miss Confucius? Sorry. That one. Does anyone know this one? I think it speaks for itself. There was a research, I think a couple of weeks ago, that showed if you read something, you remember about 10% of it. If you talk about it with someone else, you remember about 30%. If you experience it or play with it, you remember about 80%. And that's what this says. Just by experience it, we make it our own. So that's what I meant with children. But we still do that. I wanted to show you some examples of where we still use play to learn something. This is an example of a surgeon. He's actually a brain surgeon, and this is a real application. They practice about 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's really tedious and boring. It's the same movement all over again. So they have to do that. And then they go home, and there were some game developers. They designed a building, and it's burning, and there's these little monsters running around in the building, and you can save them. So the interesting thing is, the surgeons have to use a Wii control to do this. And they make the exact same movement as the one they should be practicing. So they skip on their practice because they don't like it, and then they go home and they play this game for hours. But it's the same movement, it's the same practice, just by making it fun. And the death rate actually went down because the surgeons are more skilled, while they feel like they're not practicing at all. So it's learning by playing. There's another example. This is a woman who fell, and she had to go into recovery for several months. And you get this schedule. It says you have to do this movement 20 times. You have to do this movement 20 times. And you do that 4 times a week, twice a day or something. It's very, you have to. So they threw the schedule out, and they gave her a Wii. And they said, we gave you some games, and you can play against the elderly in this house. And she actually recovered 40% faster because she was having fun doing it. And she enjoyed being challenged. So that's another way of playing in a good way. And of course, don't forget bowling nights. Okay, I want to keep it on the simple side, but I do want to give you sort of the theoretical layer for a little bit. So I promise it's just a couple of sheets. This is, does anyone know what this is? This is actually what motivates us as human beings. It's, we all get our physical needs fulfilled by being autonomous, competent, and related to other ones. And the interesting part is this is exactly what happens in games. Okay, for example, autonomy, no? Autonomy is about doing it yourself. In a game, you can learn something, you can progress to the next level, and you can do this at your own speed. That is something as humans that we really want to do in life in general, and we see that in games. So the crossover is really interesting, that the three basic needs that motivate us are the three things that build up most games. Okay, if you take that theory and apply it, you get gameplay. And I'll take World of Warcraft as an example, because it's the simplest example. In World of Warcraft, you start out, and they give you a challenge. And the challenge is, I don't know, kill a troll. It's interesting because this goal is specifically tailored to where you are at that moment. It's always at the end of your reach. So you really have to work to reach that goal. And that's how gameplay works. You can always obtain the goal, but you have to do something for it. And that's really human. You get motivated if you know you can do it, but you have to stretch. So that's how gameplay works. And this is how, if I'm losing people, tell me. Okay. So this is how games work. You have a core, you have the circle around it, and you have a layer. The layer is called the declaring layer. This is where you have a tell. The tell is usually a world. You walk into Mario and it's a castle and you have to save the princess. That's the story. That's the context that gets created where you are going to perform something. And then you get to the second layer, which is the mechanics itself. And that is where gamers spend most of their time. For example, in Mario, you won't make it. You do it again and again and again and again and again until you do make it. Yeah. So the mechanics is where gamers spend most of their time, and then you get to the results. And the results are you've learned something. So in normal communication, you start at the center. This is the knowledge I want you to understand. And then we're going to talk about how you can apply it in theory. Gaming works the other way around. You start at the outside and you move inwards. And we're going to do this with examples. Okay, we're going to go to some basic elements. I took some of them and I built some cases around it because otherwise it's going to be too academic, which I'm not. These are some of the elements that we learned from games and we apply. So these are specific gamification elements. For example, you said, oh, I'm going too fast. We do things in life because we have a goal. In Mario, you come in and the goal is clear. You have to save the princess. But this goal applies to other things as well. If you go to the Weight Watchers in America, they make a scan of your body and they ask you, what do you want to achieve? And you say, I want to lose 30 pounds. And they use your body and they give you an image of you 30 pounds lighter. No. That is your goal. That is what you're working towards. And then they give you the tools to get there. And that is a real good motivator. LinkedIn used the same principle of giving you a goal. Does anyone know this? Yeah. The balkje? Okay. It's annoying, I know. The principle of LinkedIn is they want your information. If someone asks you to fill out another profile, you sort of resent that. You're like, oh, I have to give more information. So they're not asking you, they just give you this. And they say you're at 90%. And it's really human, because you're like, but my goal is to complete it. What do I have to do to get 100?
So you're not weird when you actually want to do that?
No, you're normal. It's really human. Yeah, I did it. And I know what they're using, so I still did it. No, but it's really human. You want to complete a task. So just by setting that goal, they motivate you to do something which is actually more interesting for them than it is for you. That's using a goal. Okay, the second element. Because we feel a sense of urgency. Who has ever been to a party where one of your crazy friends said, I really need to harvest my potatoes? Potatoes or something. Okay, this is Farmville. Farmville, I think everyone knows it, right? Okay, the interesting thing that Farmville took is that they created digital scarcity, which doesn't exist. They say if you plant your tomatoes, they will only be good between 2 and 4 hours. You can come and get your reward. After that, they're bad. Not because the code goes bad, But because they said, then it's gone. I don't know why, but it works really well, because we set our timers. In the middle of the night, you get up and you harvest your tomatoes. And I have weirder examples. So the feeling of urgency and digital scarcity is something that is applicable at other things as well. Has anyone ever bought something at Groupon? Do you really think that after 12 o'clock at night you can no longer go to the hairdresser? It's really simple. They say until a certain amount, until a certain time, you can come and collect it. Not because it's gone, but because we created a limit. And the digital scarcity is something that motivates us to do something. It can be go back to a game, but it can also be buy something. So you can activate people. Well, something that's also really human is I want to see how I am doing. I want to see my progress. To go back to a game, this is a level 85, I think, character in World of Warcraft. It means two things. It means you spend too much time in World of Warcraft. And it also means that you collected a lot of interesting things and you are better than someone else because your character looks better, has certain skills, and certain skills and things that you developed. So it's a complete package of your progress. There are some game designers who took this and they thought, let's put it in a car. This is an actual car. Someone built this, you buy it, this is what your dashboard looks like. It's fairly regular, except for the thing on the right. Do you see it? What it is, it's a digital pet. It's a plant. It starts off as a seed. As soon as you start your motor and you drive really well and really frugal, it starts to grow. So the better you drive, the more gas you save, and the better your plant grows. And they put it in your car. Which is strange, especially since people don't stop at stoplights anymore. Because it's bad to brake and restart your engine. Yes. So they banned it again. But the thing is, it's interesting because you want to take care of it. You want to optimize it, you want it to grow.
I have one question.
Yes. Laura.
I could imagine that this could work because it's funny if you see your plant grow for about maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
And after that, yeah, I would get bored and I wouldn't care about the plant anymore.
You can probably upgrade.
How do these kind of things work on the longer term?
Well, the thing is, if you don't care anymore, it dies.
Yeah, but that's okay.
And your dashboard turns really ugly.
No, but I had my fun with it. Yeah.
True, but your dashboard will be ugly. So,
Yeah, but then again, at a certain point,
yeah.
you stop caring. And
That's true.
Today, other people 2 years.
That's
At
true.
some point,
Yes.
it will be no fun anymore. So
That's actually one of the problems most people run into because they choose one of these elements and they think then we have gamified or we have a solution that is gamification. And that's not completely true. Gamification, if you do it correctly, is a mixture of elements. But you're right, at some point you will get bored, partially because you're maybe not the target audience and partially because it's not designed as it should be. But the Tamagotchi principle, where you take something and take care of it, it goes on for months, years.
a lot of Tamagotchis died already.
Yes, I think so.
You need to upgrade to a puppy, I think.
So, you're right, at some point it's going out of style. Okay, the fourth element is actually the biggest thing because it gives you feedback. A lot of gamers tell us in research that they are happier in-game than they are in real life. And that has to do with this. The fact that they get feedback and they get rewarded. It's something that doesn't really happen on a daily basis in your daily life. In a game, it happens at set points which make you want to continue the game. Because you know you will be rewarded and you will get feedback. There's also a study in the Stanford Journal of Neuroscience that shows that if you get a virtual reward, it releases the same amount of dopamine, which is the happy drug, which you get from chocolate, as you would when you get a real present. Which is interesting. Our brain doesn't distinguish virtual rewards from real rewards. So within virtual environments, those rewards have real impact. I love this picture. Can you guess what he's doing?
No.
Maybe no guessing. Okay. So he's playing a game. For people who are not expert gamers, you probably see that he's really focused. You already see the difference from someone lying on the couch watching TV or checking his phone. They're leaning forward, it's lean forward engagement, and they're focused on what they're doing. If you're a bit more skilled, you can see his eyes wide open and you can see his mouth is stressed. This means that he's on the verge of what we call an epic win. So he's almost there. And you can tell that he's close to achieving something he has never done before. And that's interesting because that's a reward, because he has done something he has never achieved in his life. And that's a big thing. We may think he's just spending hours in a game, but he's actually being rewarded. And that's what a game does. All throughout a game, you get rewarded. You get achievements, you get feedback. No one thought this was going to be big, but this was huge. People do the craziest things to get a full set of achievements. Just to keep that feedback going, they go and look, what do I have to do to get all the achievements? So what if you apply that to real games? I don't work for a boss, but I cannot imagine anyone's boss going, "You're doing so well," every 5 minutes. I don't think that's something that happens. So the fact that we don't get feedback in our real life is quite a valuable thing. And you can use that by giving people insight and giving feedback on how they are doing compared to other people, or how they're doing on an individual basis. And you can use it in a lot of corporate things. You can also use that for children. This is the reason children are addicted to games. They can play certain games for years because they keep getting rewarded. The next reward is going to be just a little bit further away. They're going to work just a little bit harder to get there, and then the next one comes. So the feedback part and the reward is something that keeps people tied to things for a long time. Okay, element 5. This is where the women come in. Until now, most people think that if I come to talk about games, I talk about 16-year-old boys. That's not true. The biggest group of people playing games or being affected by gamification is women, 30 and up. And that's because we're social creatures. This is a game, it's called The Sims. It's not the best example, but what I found interesting is that, does everyone know what The Sims is? Anyone know? You can raise your hands. Okay, The Sims is a virtual world where you can build your own town. You can start with your house. And what's interesting is that most people who do this, they start with their own situation. So I build a house, I have a boyfriend, kids, a dog, a car. That's where I start. And then I start experimenting. And that's interesting. For people, this is a safe environment to try things out. And then add other people into the mix. That is where it becomes social. That's why Foursquare is such a success. We want to do things with our friends, share them. Okay, and we can also be really antisocial. I really like this example. Does anyone know it? It's by Whopper. If you sacrifice 10 of your Facebook friends, you get a free Whopper.
I do it.
I think after 6 days. Yeah. How much? I think after 6 days, Facebook put a stop to it because they were losing members. So people were unfriending. So now you know what you're worth. 10 friends for 1 Whopper. Okay. The 6th element, and I heard someone say, it shows what I already know, which is I'm better than you. Which I thought, okay. But it's interesting, because if we do something, and our neighbor or our friend or our little sister does it better, it's really human to think, but that's weird, because I've done this for a while, I know how to do it, I should have a better score. And that's the competition part. It comes from really, really old games. All the fighters, all the shooters are based on competition. But it's not just games. And 95% of the scientists at the University of Stanford claim they have an above average intelligence compared to the university's average. So 95% is sure that they're up here. Above the average. No. No, that's not right. I think we have, no, that's statistics, that's another lecture, but no. It shows that people have a different perception of where they stand than the reality. Because the reality sucks compared to your own image. Okay, but to come back to the competition part, it's interesting if you can use it for something else. For example, Lay's. What did they do? They wrote out a contest saying, you find us a new flavor. And all of a sudden, everyone in the Netherlands had an opinion, had a suggestion, had to do something with the brand, and was working with it, was joining the competition, and over 3 million people joined this fight, which is imaginary, because they can make 20 flavors and they don't care. But the thing is, everyone felt part of a team, and they wanted to compete, and they wanted their flavor to win. I think they won about 25,000 euros. I think they won on the right one in the end. But it's interesting, just because they make it into a competition, people feel like they're engaged and they join it. So, in the end, if we combine this and go back to, well, the Pyramid of Maslow, we'll do it for, well, basically money, glory, and love. And the difference here, money stands for the short term, which is external motivators. A good example is win an iPad. People do that sometimes, but they do it because they want to win the iPad, not because they want to be engaged with your message or your brand. They do it because they win the iPad and then they leave, and there's not a relationship. If you do it for love or for glory, that is when you talk about long term. That is when you intrinsically motivate people to do something. And if you're motivated, then you will do it for a longer time. Okay, here's a question. Who do you think is designing this? Do you think that LinkedIn is using skilled game designers to make a little thing that goes up to 100%? Do you think Lay's hires game designers from the HKU or the HVA or flies them in from America? Yeah. I don't think so. I think that they just use whoever is there. Like a guy from the agency or someone who has a smart idea. They get the concept and they can use elements, but it also leads to very bad examples of gamification because people have heard about it but don't really know what to do. So that's why you get this. Chicken at the funeral. I'm not sure who came up with that, but I'm pretty sure it's a bad idea. Or you don't want to check in here. Another bad idea, which I'm sure will make especially the women cringe in this room, is well, it's not the latest, it's been a while. It's an X campaign. X designed a house, and they said we're going to gamify it. You can follow the angels, which was 3 lovely, sexy girls, and you can follow them with webcams. And if you do certain things for us, we give you halos. And you can use those halos to control the webcams. And you can control the webcams to look up their skirts. You can laugh, but there's about 2 million boys who did this. And it was bad. Oh, and the winner got to spend the night in the house without cameras. So. No, it worked for horny boys, but it didn't work for the brand.
Why not?
But the brand is about horny boys.
The audience, and they probably like the game, and they all want to play it, and they all
yes, but
associate with the brand, and maybe even want to buy it. So
but less than 1% knew it was X.
okay, well then they did that marketing.
They knew it was pretty girls, but it wasn't tied in with the brand. It doesn't say anything about your values. It doesn't really get people to think. Sorry? That's true. That's a different story. All right, I want to show you some things that I think are good examples of gamification, where they did hire game designers. And I want to start small. Let's cure HIV. Let's start there. Okay. This is an interesting fact for you. So far, we've spent almost 6 million years playing World of Warcraft. And that's millions of people playing this game, getting really good at something. Just to give you some context, that's the same amount, if you trace it back, until the first human ancestors stood up. Same amount of time. So we evolved from basically monkeys to this. In the same time, we try and we spend time in World of Warcraft, which is essentially a big puzzle. World of Warcraft is an environment where you solve problems and you progress. And by the age of 21, all the people have 10,000 hours of experience in gaming. I have to look here. Oh, Malcolm Gladwell said that if you spend 10,000 hours doing anything, you're an expert at it. So by the time these kids are 21, they're experts at something. We're not really sure. They play games, but what are they experts at? I think they're experts at solving puzzles, solving problems, progressing, finding a way to progress to something new. So there were some scientists, and they were trying to find a cure for HIV, and they couldn't solve a puzzle, which was basically a string of DNA. So what they did is they asked the gamer community, they said, what if we challenge you? And we ask you if you can solve our puzzle. These are people who spend tens of thousands of hours solving puzzles. And within weeks, they did what the scientists couldn't do in years. They solved it. Which is interesting because it turned out that was the next step for HIV drugs. So we are now one step closer to solving HIV because we involve gamers in solving a problem. I think that is gamification. You take the puzzle and you apply it, you challenge people, and they come up with the solution. Okay, we can go a little bit more commercial just for Rai. How about selling a product? You hire some game designers and you give them freedom. Because in the end, that's when the most creative ideas come up, which is really scary. Nike did this. Nike is a brand, if you think about it. If you take it back to basically the essence, what does Nike do?
Make shoes.
They sell shoes. I never turn on the TV and I never see a commercial for Nike saying, this is our newest shoe. Look at the shiny things and it's orange. I never see that. What I see, if I go to the Nike website or if I see the commercials, I see them talking about running. And that is really interesting. They claimed a domain and they said, we're going to gamify our products. And what does it do? You go running with our shoes. They created, well actually, sorry, I'm going too fast. Their whole brand is now, it has a new payoff, it's called Game On World. It says it all. You can do anything. You can get an app, it follows your progress. You get a personal trainer, which follows your speed. You get your personal goals. You have a community, men versus women, where you can join a group, feel part of something. You have decisions, you can join an event, you can see your achievements. Everyone can join. And the interesting part is that they never talk about their shoes. They challenge you to run. If I go to work, I see this. If I go to the park, I see this. Every point in my day, I come in contact with a Nike challenge. This one is their latest. I have one. I'm not wearing it now because I'm pregnant. But it's a band. It's called a Fuel Band. What it does is it measures all your movement.
Are these for sale in Holland now?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
They're only in London and America. What it does, it counts your steps, it counts your heart rate, and it shows you, at the end of the day, what your progress is. It has essentially gamified all your movements. And I've done this. I've stood in front of the TV, and I thought, my goal is 3,000, and I have a 40-day streak, and I'm missing 200 points. And I'm doing jumping jacks in front of my TV to make sure I hit my goal, because you don't want to lose your streak. And I'm not weird. I'm not weird. The point is, by this whole elaborate system that creeps into your daily life, by gamifying every aspect, hardware, software, and this, they make sure they motivate you. And you become motivated and you stay motivated for a while. And to answer your question, I've done this for about 2 years. And then it was done. So I do agree that there's an end to it. But in the process, I did lose about 20 kilos, and I started running. And, well, in my case, it was more wobbling, but I started, and it's interesting because you start at 1 minute, and I'm not a sporty girl, but you can see your progress, and at some point, you can run 5 miles and 10 miles. And
The reason I'm so enthusiastic, I've actually just started running. I'm a 2-minute girl at the moment. And I'm looking for a way to make it fun. And I've got the zombie run, which I've still got to try. But I wanted one of those, but I didn't know what it was called. So
it's a fuel band.
Thank you.
You can get them on Marktplaats. The zombie app is also interesting.
Yeah.
If you want, another way to gamify running is figure running, where you have a big map and they challenge you to run a figure. It can be a smiley, it can be anything, and you can share that with your friends.
Thank you.
So,
Very good.
you went a little bit further. Okay. I also wanted, because we're at KPMG today, I also wanted to see a little bit more corporate and try a completely different aspect. So,
Thank you.
this is actually one of the cases we just lately did. Oh, sorry, I wasn't talking about the boring. I was talking about... No, I was talking about a problem we run into a lot. That's not better, sorry. It's compliance. Okay, every company has compliance issues. Especially if they went to the stock market, you have to be compliant and all your employees have to abide by a certain set of rules. If we dumb compliance down, that's what it is. Which is really hard because usually the rules are made here. And then someone at the top thinks, okay, we have to communicate this down and everyone has to do this. It's a must. But if you're a little bit lower, you're not really interested in doing this or why. Well, why would make it better, but you're not really motivated to join this and do it by yourself. So someone should come and stand by your desk and help you, and that's not logical at all. So we did this for, let's say, a big telecom provider. What we did is we created a digital environment. We said, how about we make it fun? So we took compliance, and we took out all the text, and we said, you can run your own company. We're going to let you see what the effect is if your employees do not abide by the rules. So you can do two things. You can either follow the rules and see the consequence of your choices, or you can see if you can break the system. And people are usually more inclined to do the second one because they think, no, I don't want to be compliant, I want to break the system. Which is actually interesting because you learn that better, because you know all the scenarios that can go wrong. So the people who took the second track and tried to ruin it by getting all the employees to riot actually got better scores and better progress in the knowledge because they have a better understanding. Okay, so it's a virtual world where you get quizzes and tests and you get to experience compliance and you get to battle against your colleagues. You get, oh, I have an example. This is very simple. Is it working? This is what we call a scenario where you have to hit a red button at the point where you're thinking, this is probably not compliant anymore. Interesting part is, most people, they just want to watch the whole video, see how it escalates until they hit the red button. Just to give you an example. Okay, people got to see their own progress, see how the knowledge was getting better, and at the end, which was interesting, is that it wasn't mandatory, but over 2/3 of the company, all the employees played it because they wanted to, and the knowledge increased almost 30% just by playing a game. And they played it over and over. The average was 3 to 5 times, so they came back, did it again, because they thought it was fun. So they spent about a couple of hours average in this environment, which is interesting because Shell has a problem getting all their employees to study compliance for an hour a week. And with this, people said, no, I don't want to study, I want to play the game, and they spend hours in it. Yes?
The goal is to know the rules or to apply the rules?
No, the goal is to apply them, and by seeing the results of your choices, you can understand the rules better. So it's not about...
I mean, what does the company want? Does the company want that the employees know the rules or that they apply the rules? Because
what they want is that, well, the official briefing is that we want it to start living within our culture. No one is talking about it. It's not even about understanding it. Most people didn't even know they had a code of conduct or a set rule for compliance. They didn't even know that existed. So that was the starting point. The second point was where people would talk about it at the water cooler, but also the managers have, at the back end, they have a dashboard and they can see how their team is doing opposed to other teams and where the problems and knowledge are, so they can talk about it in the team meeting. And that's how we started to talk about it a little bit more. And then the next step is understanding and applying it. That's the process. Does that answer your question?
Because I mean, with this game, I have the impression that you achieved only the first step, knowing the rules.
Yeah, I think we achieved the second step, but it's not something that you implement and then we're done. This is a process, which is also the next slide. It's what we call a digital playground, where people have to come back and you reintroduce the themes and you add new themes where people can practice. And they can do it again with new content or new scenarios, but it stays current.
I just wonder if it translates. I mean, you make it fun by playing the game,
Yes.
but in the end you have to apply it in a boring situation. And you go back to the boring situation, which is the real life, right?
Yes.
And how does that work?
Well, the fact that we see an increase in knowledge just by people understanding it better and being able to apply it, we see in the results that they apply it in the daily business by, I'll give you an example. There's a compliance officer and he has a desk within the company and nobody knew he existed. And after the game, he's had about 4 to 6 mails a day of people asking questions or tapping him on the shoulder about an issue. So what we think we achieved is that at least people think about it and are a little bit activated. But I don't think gamification is the holy grail. I don't think the company is now done with compliance. I think it's a different way of presenting it, where you engage people instead of sending them a 46-page PDF and tell them they have to learn this. But you have to stay current. The rules change, new people come, you have to practice your knowledge, so we will continue with this project.
But what would you design, for example, if you would assume that everybody knows the rules, but nobody's applying? Then what would
If everyone knows the rules, but no one's applying them, then that's a different challenge where we have to get them to apply it. For example, I play a game. It's called Game Dev Story. It's about a game company. I own a game company, and the interesting part is I played it for years, and I still look back and I think, oh, I learned this from it, I learned that from it. But mostly I learned from it by trying to take shortcuts or break the game. If you want to activate people, you have to challenge them. It's not as much as the virtual environment where they can just do whatever they like. You have to make a game design where they can find their way and either learn by doing or doing it wrong. Yeah? If you want, we could talk about it a little bit more, but I think I will go to what's next. If we talk about gamification, okay, we talked about skilled game designers. And I'm wondering what happens, I know the game designers of my company, I'm wondering what happens if they get a hold of this. My Starbucks points, my bonus cards. So I made a little scenario. I thought, what if I get up in the morning? I wake up on time, good for me, I get 5 points. I brush my teeth, I get 10 points. Who's giving me these points? Well, for example, it could be a company that sells toothpaste, because they want me to brush my teeth every day. So if I brush them 5 days in a row, I get more points. Then I go for a run, which is good for my health. So I get 50 points for my health insurance and a deduction at the end of the year of 2%. Then I take the bike to work. My bike is also moving, so it's better than going with the bus. So I get 25 points, except I'm late for work, which is not good for my end year bonus. So I lose 25 euros, or I lose 15 points because I'm late. But I eat a salad at lunch. So I type it into Foodsie, which is where I keep all my dietary things, and I get points. I take the bus, which is public transport, very good, and I see a QR code on the side of the bus by eBay. I scan it, eBay is giving me a discount, and I'm wearing jeans. Okay, I purchase my jeans with a credit card, and thereby I save for a holiday. I go on a date. Does anyone know this app? It has gamified dating. If the date is bad, you get extra points, and next time they will try better to give you a good match. Okay, the date was bad, so I'm going out for drinks with my girlfriends. alcohol is bad for your health, so I deduct points, but I go to bed on time, so I get more points. I know everyone's laughing, but seriously, I ask myself, if we gamify everything, what happens next? Because Gartner is a research firm, they say, and you think this is the future, it's not, it's in 2 years. In 2 years, 50% of all companies will use gamification. That's not that far away. So the scenario I just gave you is not that far away. Actually, all the things I said are already existent. And some of them are maybe unknown, but they're coming, and they're not in the distant future. So what I want to give you from today is that if you use gamification, all the elements we talked about in the theoretical layers, you can actually change someone's behavior. Okay, can you imagine that we apply that to world hunger, or environmental issues, or the world economy? Yes?
So if you have gamification in all of our life,
Yes.
say, what happens with our motivation if we get this instant reward with everything we do? Do we actually react on gamification anymore?
I think so, yes. If there's something in it for you, because that's the end. If you go, for example, the insurance thing. If I eat healthy, if I take my bike, and I get, at the end of the year, I get a bonus, and I pay less, that's interesting. If I do that already, and I log that in, and I get rewarded. So, and if it's automatic, I get the same reward the next year, yes.
It also seems a bit immature that you would have to be rewarded for everything to actually do something. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I'm not doing anything because nobody's giving me points.
True. But you can also turn it
Might
around.
be my generation, but it's a bit worrying, to be honest. Yeah?
I think it's an opportunity.
Oh,
I think
quite
it's
possibly.
interesting.
You know,
Because
but
it's in the end, it's not the content that changed, it's the layer.
true. True, I'm a bit of a pessimist, so I think what happens when discipline, no, not discipline, but you know, it would be lovely if people would do things without being rewarded by others, but just because they're
Altruism.
truly, altruism,
Here's the thing, if
personal motivation.
you know that the world is having problems with oil, you know this, do you drive your car less? Do you take that upon yourself to change that? I
In
see
that
yes,
particular
yes, I see
example,
more.
but
The thing
yeah,
is, we know.
Yes, I see
Yeah.
your point.
You understand the situation, you can rationalize it, but still don't take the action. I'm not saying you
No,
personally,
no, I
but
understand.
it's quite human to not take that step. And if we can use gamification to push you over the edge and help you with that, I see that as an optimistic point of view. But I understand that you don't want to stand at the door of your...
I was just imagining all these 14-year-olds not doing anything because they're not getting points for it. But like I said,
Or because they're already done, because they've learned everything there is to know already, and they're moving on to the next subject.
I like
'cause
your
they're-
world. I like your world.
Yes.
Do you see a difference in response to gamification between genders or ages?
What I heard is a difference in response between genders and
Different ages.
age.
Yeah.
Well, I see a generation gap. What I see is that a younger generation is no longer used to a linear system. If you look at young children, they understand that everything they need is at their fingertips. They don't get why the TV doesn't respond, and they certainly won't get why they have to learn something and then they can forget it. They are different with technology. They are looking more towards how can I find something and how can I apply that. So they have a different way of interacting with all the systems around them. Within a game system, they thrive even better than the generation now. So I do see an age gap, but I don't see a gender gap. No, not so far at least.
So does it work with old people as well?
Yeah, actually they did that with the program where they tried to get people to recover by using gamification, and it worked really, really well. Older people recover faster if you use gamification. it's still human nature to want to be playful and to want to have your own autonomy and have your own speed and be challenged. And just because you're older, it doesn't go away. What I'm trying to establish is the fact that we have some systems and we've designed them in a really linear way. But human nature doesn't work like that at all. And gamification takes it back to where the systems completely give you freedom and you get to find your own way. So they have a different results than just from A to B. Okay. Any more questions? Because I'm thinking I want to give you 2 books, which are my biggest heroes. One of them is by Jay McGonigal, and she is brilliant. She wants to change the world using gamification. She's telling everyone... No? Okay. She's telling everyone that we should play more games because collectively we can solve world hunger, which I thought was a really interesting subject. So if you can find her, watch her TED Talk. And the next one is by Jesse Schell, and it's The Art of Game Design. It goes deeper into the basics of what is game design, how does it work, how does it apply to me. Yeah? Okay. Well, actually, we sort of skipped ahead, but I always like to end with a question towards the audience because it's always more interesting. You came here with an idea, like, I want to follow this seminar because I want to know something about gamification. So my question to you would be, have I answered all those questions, or is there still something that you thought, I wanted to know this and you haven't touched on it? Can you ask me that? Yes.
We have a microphone.
Do you want a microphone?
Yeah.
Wait, I have one. Yeah, here.
But are you, because I think it's very good for learning and also improving your skills, also at work. But I think that there is maybe one part that is not touched yet. So how companies are part of engaging their worker will use this kind of tools also for firing people or for hiring people. So I mean, I think which can be good, but also to play a game is at the end is a model of a reality that hide a lot of what a person is and his capability, his social context. So there is not really so much real social interaction in a game. It's just virtual. So I was thinking, in this field of gamification, is this part also considered yet or not?
There are some examples. It's interesting because gamers say reality is the worst game ever. But if you... Oh, can I give it to you? Thank you. Okay. Well, for example, you touch a subject, how do I hire people or how do I fire them? What's interesting is that there's so much knowledge about that, but personally you only do it a couple times. In a virtual environment where you can use experience from each other and take this in a playful way, you can use it in a real life situation. There's a giant law firm, Houtma Buruma, I think it's called. It's Dutch, is it called that? I'm not sure. Houthof Buruma, sorry. They have a program which is a game, and potential employees get to play this game. And what's interesting is that the best score doesn't necessarily qualify you for a job, but at the back end, they select people on the way they respond. Because they have a certain profile of their company, and they see the choices people make, and they select the ones that fit the best within their teams. So they use it as a selection tool for new employees. So there are many examples of using them for different corporate things, but what I see mostly is that they are now coming to the market. More, more traditional branches, such as maybe law, government, healthcare, finance. Those are the more traditional industries. They are now applying gamification. And what it says to me is that if they are doing it, they're usually the last ones to follow. So that's interesting for 2 reasons. One, it's becoming culture, and 2, the only reason they do that is because there's research proving that it works. That's the only way you're going to get healthcare to use this. So that means that TNO and all the research is finally broad enough as to where healthcare and government are feeling safe enough to apply it. So that's quite interesting, actually. More questions? Okay.
Yes, thank you for your talk.
Yes.
Thank you for your interesting talk. I tried to use some gamification app for our business. It's on fitness and health.
Ah, okay.
We have online programs, and we thought, well, let's give people an online app where they, well, when you eat an apple, you get 5 points. When you do an exercise, you get 10 points, and at the end of the week, you can compare to others.
Yes.
It wasn't our own app, and we found that people found it too much of a hassle. Most of the people, and my question is everybody motivated by points?
No.
Or do you have other, like, different groups? Do you understand my question?
Yes, I understand. You're asking about target audience segmentation, and
Yes.
not everyone responds the same to the different elements. For example, if you take competition, it will generally be something, if you can generalize it, that men will react stronger to than women, because women are different. They respond to the more social aspect where they can do something together instead of as a fight. And the point system applies mostly to people who have an analytical mindset, where they want to monitor their own progress. So they're usually people who are, well, I don't want to say control freaks, but they want to have control over what they do. You see this a lot in first movers, where I want to be my own person, so I want to adapt to certain technology and I want to be able to use it to what I think is relevant. So that's a certain group, and you can do that with every communication aspect, because gamification is communication as well. You can define your target audience and see what characteristics they have. And it's a good possibility they don't respond to points. Then that's one of the systems you would scratch and you would use other systems.
What kind of other system would you use?
Well, I think I've named 6, but there's, I think, about 64. So for this one, let me think. What did we use? The social aspect will be one. It depends. What is your target audience? What are their characteristics? Are they women?
Yes.
Are they? Okay. Then I would lean more towards social. But it's a bit generalizing to say it that flat out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What might be an interesting example is League of Legends, which is a game that you have to do within a team. And what's interesting is that people depend on each other. It's like going to the gym. And to stay motivated, you ask one of your friends, and they will come with you. And they do that in a virtual form as well in League of Legends. That system might be quite interesting. Okay. Yes.
Thanks. Nice, interesting talk. And since we are a whole bunch of scientists in the audience, I would like to ask you if you think that gamification will help for this progress of science, especially because, well, motivation is a big drive, and we have to deal on a daily basis with the frustration or spending time, and then things don't run, and then you go home without the achievement.
Actually, what you do already is gamification, because it's trial and error. You try, you fail,
But
you
we
try.
get no reward on a bad day.
Then you have to talk to your boss. But no, I understand your question. The fact that you're analytical and you have a goal and you try to get there and you fail, you try again. The paths you find and the challenge you set, that's already a little bit of gamification. But you could make it a little bit more fun if you want to, by adding milestones, by adding achievements, by sharing maybe things you did accomplish with your colleagues. So, but I'm not sure how it works.
So you don't think you could design a game?
Yeah, of course you can gamify it. Yes, of course. If you want, yeah.
The gold stars.
You talk about motivation and goals, but do you ever put punishment schedules in these games? Or does that just... it's the complete opposite, but just punishment is a very, usually one-trial learning, in many cases, in classic psychology experiments. I don't know whether it's just a no-go in gamification.
We never use it. I don't believe in punishment. It doesn't mean I won't raise my children without disciplining them, but within a virtual environment, we find that reward just works more effectively than punishment, so that's why we just don't use it. So, but it's punishment enough. For example, the digital scarcity, the fact that people miss their tomatoes, that's usually punishment enough because they have to do it again.
So lack of reward rather than punishing.
I think that's better, yeah.
If I would participate in a game of a producer of a brand or something, like let's say, I give them quite a lot of information about myself.
Yes.
And they could be personalized, they can know that it's me or they can, but if I want to get a reward, probably they will know who I am and they just track my information and get quite a lot of information about me, especially if it would be connected to how often I take activities. And stuff like this, and then it could, in the future, for example, affect my insurance costs. Do you think that it will stop at some point gamification? Like people will not want to participate in such an application because they would be afraid of being tracked and giving.
Oh yeah, I think there's definitely people who do that. I think that the systems now track data. It's more like big data. And they analyze that, and from that they get behavioral analytics, and they can actually sort of already predict what you're going to do. And the fact that they can do that, to some people, is quite scary. We have one project that I'm really passionate about. We did this with War Child in southern Sudan. The situation is that children cannot go to school because it's a war zone, so they have to stay home, and they're undereducated. They're not able to read or write. But they get this one laptop. It's powered by solar energy. It's called One Laptop Per Child program. And what we did is we did this because we find it interesting. It's a pet project. We made no money on it. We developed a program or a game where children can learn math on that laptop. So they don't have to go to school. They can learn it at home. And just by doing that, they are really safe and they learn something. And the next step is, because it turns out, I'm going way too fast, I'm enthusiastic, it turns out it really works. They actually learn math from the age 12 to 14, and because it works, we have decided to now do it for reading and writing as well. And it's now done in southern Sudan, but we want to do it for different countries. So yes, I still want to change the world. So we still have projects where we think we want to invest in that. Yes?
Sorry, there was one.
Lieke.
Okay. I think a couple more questions and then.
Yeah, I'm just very curious about the process of designing a game.
Okay.
Can you maybe tell me something about how many weeks or months does it take your team? How many people are in your team? Do they brainstorm? How do they visualize their ideas, etc.?
Okay. What usually happens is a client comes with a question. It's never we want a certain type of game or we want a certain type of solution. It's always we have this problem. And we start with analyzing the problem and then seeing what applies to them. It's like a normal communication plan. The moment we start game designing is as soon as we start thinking of the solution. And then the team always consists of a game designer, someone who thinks in systems, a technical person, who thinks in, yes, you can dream this, but can we build it? And a graphical person. And those three combined, they start with a solution and we present that. And within our company, we use agile development. It's a fancy word for saying that we iterate, so we build something, we test it, and then we adapt. And then we build further, and then we adapt again. And we use, for example, Scrum methods. So, you know? Oh, you know.
I thought so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we have a really big board, which is the heart of the company. And every morning, everyone at 9, unless you're late, then you have to wear a suit the next day. So, maybe 9:05, we stand in front of this board, and every team member tells us what they did the day before, if they have any problems, and then the team has to help them solve the problem before we move on. So everyone in the company is aware of what the other one is developing, where they are at, and the dependencies. It's really important if you want to deliver on time and on budget. So we're what you call a flexible company. I think that I would describe it as flexible. I finished my study and I quit my job. I think, well, I didn't go to my job. I quit on the first day. But my boss was really enthusiastic. He said, yeah, you should start for yourself. It's a really good idea. Why don't I advise you? So the fact that he offered, we asked him and two other grey gentlemen to become an advisory board. And we wrote our first business plan and we presented it to them. And they literally put it through a shredder. They said, that's horrible, try again. But you're 24 and our mission was we want to change the world with games. But how, we're not really sure yet. So we wrote a second business plan. And the interesting part is we exist 5 years. And we looked at it, I think a couple of days ago. And where we started and what we had in mind is completely different from where we ended up. So in the end we said, we'll just start. We'll just use our own computer. We'll just find a client who will help us launch. And if it works, we can find another client. And that's how we sort of organically grew. Which is interesting because 2008 was the year the crisis hit. So everyone was sort of downsizing and restarting a new company. But it turned out really well and we just grew with our own money. So there's no strange capital. Which is really nice because it gives us freedom to make our own decisions. And we just grow from there. And now we take on projects that we really like or we find really interesting or really innovative. Does it answer your question? It's a really nice story. Basically, we got drunk in China and we thought we have to do this. So that's a short version.
Do you still want to change the world?
Yes.
In what way? Do you have any clues now?
Yes, we have one project that I'm really passionate about. We did this with War Child in southern Sudan. The situation is that children cannot go to school because it's a war zone. So they have to stay home and they're undereducated. They're not able to read or write, but they get this one laptop. It's powered by solar energy. It's called One Laptop Per Child program. And what we did is we did this because we find it interesting. It's a pet project. We make no money on it. We developed a program or a game where children can learn math on that laptop. So they don't have to go to school. They can learn it at home. And just by doing that, they are really safe and they learn something. And the next step is, because it turns out, I'm going way too fast, I'm enthusiastic. It turns out it really works. They actually learn math from the age 12 to 14. And because it works, we have decided to now do it for reading and writing as well. And it's now done in southern Sudan, but we want to do it for different countries. So yes, I still want to change the world. So we still have projects where we think we want to invest in that. Yes?
Sorry, there was one...
Lieke.
Okay. I think a couple more questions and then...
Yeah, I'm just very curious about the process of designing a game.
Okay.
Can you maybe tell me something about how many weeks or months does it take your team? How many people in your team? Do they brainstorm? How do they visualize their ideas, etc.?
Okay. What usually happens is a client comes with a question. It's never we want a certain type of game or we want a certain type of solution. It's always we have this problem. And we start with analyzing the problem and then seeing what applies to them. It's like a normal communication plan. The moment we start game designing is as soon as we start thinking of the solution. And then the team always consists of a game designer, someone who thinks in systems, a technical person who thinks in, yes, you can dream this, but can we build it? And a graphical person. And those three combined, they start with a solution and we present that. And within our company, we use agile development. It's a fancy word for saying that we iterate, so we build something, we test it, and then we adapt. And then we build further, and then we adapt again. And we use, for example, Scrum methods. So, you know? Oh, you know.
I thought so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so we have a really big board, which is the heart of the company. And every morning, everyone at 9, unless you're late, then you have to wear a suit the next day. So, maybe 9:05, we stand in front of this board, and every team member tells us what they did the day before, if they have any problems, and then the team has to help them solve the problem before we move on. So everyone in the company is aware of what the other one is developing, where they are at, and the dependencies. It's really important if you want to deliver on time and on budget. So we're what you call a flexible company. I think that I would describe it as flexible.
And
And in addition to that, do you use many standard components, or is it all custom made and very specialized?
Over the years, we've built a really big library. It's like a medicine cabinet with all these little drawers, and we use blocks of technology to build a solution, and then we do a customized layer over it. We do still do custom work, but usually this is faster and more effective because it's proven technology. So we have a very extensive library.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think there was a last question over here. And,
here.
Oh.
Two last questions.
Yeah, there's never a last question.
Hello. Hi. So, I was wondering about what the limits of gamification are. So, in your work, did you ever find a task that was either too tedious or too complex to gamify?
Yes, we've said no to clients as well, just because we didn't think that gamification was the solution to their problem. I don't think gamification is the holy grail. I don't think if you come to our office that we will be able to solve every problem. I do think that gamification applies to a lot of different industries, different communication goals, but it's not a guarantee. We have said no to people where we said this is not the best option for you.
And what makes a task hard to gamify?
That's two questions.
What makes it hard to gamify? I think after analysis that we sort of came to the conclusion that we didn't think we would add value. I don't think necessarily we didn't, how do I say this? The fact that we say no to people is because we think there are better solutions out there than something we could offer. And that's usually, what did we have? What was the last one? I think the last one was a moral dilemma my partner had, where we got a client and he just didn't think that gamification should be used for that purpose, which was, I think, it had something to do with religion and recruiting people to become religious. So we said no to that. Does that answer your question?
Or we can talk about it further in the bar. And, I do want to move on to a last question and then a quick roundup for the evening.
You mentioned that you also use gamification within your own company, and I was wondering, what are the experience with your employees? Does it also work in the long run to motivate people, and how do you use it to reward them?
Well, it's interesting because my father just called us Hotel California because we hire people but they never leave, which I thought was really interesting. And I asked people, well, why do you stay here? And they said, we like the fact that we have so much freedom and that we're part of a team and we have so much room to play. And that translates in the things that we designed for them to gamify. For example, the task list, take out the trash, clean out your desk, all the tedious things, they can earn points for that, but what I didn't suspect is that they go way further than that. They have their own competitions and their own structures, and what we just do is we give them room to do that. We try to decorate the office to a point where they just feel comfortable or at home. I think gamification is part of the process for us every day. And I think it makes it fun. For example, if we hit milestones, we celebrate. And it's a big thing. Or if we hit a deadline on time, then we reward everyone for that. And it can be something small where we go to the Efteling together, or it can be something big where we do something fun for them, like bring your parents to work day.
So not really individually rewarding on their game scores?
Yeah, we did. Actually, last month, one of our artists won the achievement list, and she got to pick her own game, and now we hear nothing but Harvest Moon, because that's what she bought. And she was really happy with that, and now there's a new competition starting. So we refresh that every couple of months. We gamified our structure, yes. Yeah. Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Discussion. Okay.
Yeah. Emily, thank you very much.